Hey everyone, it's Melody here. And today I am popping on to talk a little bit about burnout. So, you are all here because you're working hard, you're hustling to build a career and a life that you truly do love. But on route to doing that, you may be discovering that you're also pretty tired, you're stressed out, and maybe at times you're also feeling cynical about the future. Um, and maybe for you, this pattern has gone on for a little bit of a longer period of time. So at this point, you may be wondering if you're just stressed or if it's something more. So you may be wondering if you're actually burned out, if that's possible for you. So that's what I want to talk with you about today. So I want to talk about a little more about what burnout is, some of the warning signs and early symptoms of it, so you can be aware of those, and the different types of burnout, because most people aren't aware that there are more than one. So if you are joining me live, please do say hello. I'm just going to make sure I can see if people are popping on. So leave me a comment, let me know if you're here watching live. And I do want this to be interactive. So if you have questions, please go ahead and pop those in the comments. I'll be taking a look as I go through the video today. So first of all, what is burnout? It is the physical and the mental exhaustion that comes along with prolonged periods of stress. So being under stress for a significant period of time. And actually, experts don't really agree about what burnout is. It's really a collection of different symptoms. So there's different definitions of it, but it's actually more and more being recognized as a real medical diagnosis. So I have worked with a number of different clients who come to me realizing that they might be right on the verge of burning out. Or I've also worked with people who are returning to work after a period of medically induced leave as a result of burnout. So they're coming back to work now and realizing that they need to approach things very differently. They need to change their behavior to make the way they approach their career much more sustainable. So it's important to spot these different signs of burnout and know what they are, because it's related to a number of very serious health issues. So chronic stress, it contributes to mental health issues like anxiety, depression. It can even lead to heart disease. And so what we're talking about today is actually very serious. Burnout actually, it changes your brain. So it impacts your creativity, your ability to focus. It can also impact your memory and your concentration. So what's tricky about burnout, though, is that it often comes on very slowly. It's something that creeps up on you. So it's not something that happens overnight, but it happens very slowly, which is why people often don't recognize it until it's too late, until they're too deep in it. But the concepts can really be life-altering, which is why I want to share with you some of the top signs and symptoms today. So how can you tell if you're crossing the line from just being stressed and if it's something temporary to actually being burned out? So some of the signs of burnout are physical symptoms. So you're exhausted most of the time. You may be having headaches or muscle aches, body aches. You may be getting sick more often or find that you get sicker much more easily. One of the hallmarks of imposter syndrome is having a negative attitude about your work or career. So you may feel helpless, you may feel cynical, you have a loss of motivation, a loss of optimism about the future, that sense of hope goes away. You may feel like everything is just overwhelming all the time, or that your efforts are futile. They go nowhere. It doesn't matter what you do because who cares? It doesn't matter anyway. That sort of attitude. You may be neglecting your own needs. That's the people pleasing, being more of a pushover, just saying, whatever, I can't deal with it. Withdrawing from new responsibilities, pulling back. withdrawing from new challenges or meeting new people. You may be procrastinating, and that looks like avoidance of work or it taking you just a long time to work on something because you have that brain fog and it's very difficult to concentrate. I see a few people are joining, so if you're here, just let me know in the comments, say hello. And if you have questions as I'm going along, do let me know too. So just a few other signs of burnout. You're short-tempered, especially with colleagues, so you have a short fuse. I always say, like, if you just scratch the surface a little bit, your emotions kind of explode. Difficulty sticking with regular self-care. So you may be neglecting exercise, eating right. Weight gain or weight loss are common with burnout too. And what the research actually finds is that burnout is more common with people who have that type A high achieving personality. That also contributes to burnout and can increase your disposition for it. So how do you know if it's burnout or if something is depression? I get that question a lot. So depression is slightly different. Burnout is usually related to work and your career. Depression is something that's more pervasive, that sense of low self-esteem, hopelessness. Those are more so hallmarks of depression, and the negative thoughts and feelings that come along with depression tend to be more pervasive throughout your life versus just in your work alone. So that gives you a little bit of the differentiation between the two. But they are very closely related, so it's easy to confuse them. So not all burnout is created equally. So there's actually 3 different types of it, which I want to tell you about. And I want to cover those because knowing the difference between them is important to then finding the solutions to match. Because what's going to bring you out of burnout for each of those different types is different. So the first one is what's called overload burnout. This is the one that most of us are familiar with. It's the kind of burnout that comes as a result of overworking, working harder and just more frenetically in pursuit of success. And in one survey that differentiated between these 3 different types of burnout, about 15% of people fell into this category. So these are people who are willing to risk their health and their personal life and give their all to their career. These people tend to cope by venting and complaining to other people. That's mainly their coping strategy. Then we have the second type, which is called UnderChallenged Burnout. And people in this category, they don't feel appreciated at work. They may be very bored. Underchallenge burnout comes as a result of not having enough challenges in front of you in work. So you may grow frustrated because your job is lacking learning experiences or room for growth. And about 10% of people fall into this category of burnout. So you may have no passion for your career or enjoyment for it. You may feel like you sort of clock in, clock out, and that's it. A job is a job. And that sort of indifference leads to a lot of that cynicism, disengagement, detachment. You have this sort of avoidance of responsibility too, because you don't want to do you want to do the absolute bare minimum and nothing more than what's required from you. And then we have the third kind of burnout. And this one is called neglect burnout. And neglect burnout is the result of feeling helpless at work. You feel like things are completely out of your control and that your efforts are futile. So about 21% of people fell into this category. And they agree with statements like, when things don't turn out as well as they should, I just stop trying, right? So if you're in this category, you may feel that you're incompetent, or you feel like you're unable to keep up with all the demands that are being thrown at you, that you're just kind of have this wave washing over you at all times. Maybe you've tried to get ahead at work, but you feel like you're constantly held back. You face barriers, and the worst part of this is that you may just simply give up. So it's closely related to that feeling of imposter syndrome, which is categorized by that um, passivity and that lack of motivation in your work. So if you've experienced burnout, you know firsthand how difficult it is to get out. It is a long-term game. It's not something that you can just snap out of overnight. It doesn't come on overnight, and certainly getting out of it doesn't happen overnight either. So I think what tends to happen as a result of that is that people oversimplify the solutions for burnout. So I want you to know that all of these are long-term solutions. This is a long-term path. But since everyone doesn't experience burnout the same way, and for the exact same reasons, it's important to identify which type you do fall into, whether it's the overload burnout, under-challenged burnout, or neglect. You may be a mix of the two, but knowing which type you're falling into makes it easier to find solutions that will match. So next I want to talk about some of the options that you have for each. So there's plenty of guidance out there about overload burnout, everything from setting better boundaries with your work schedule, managing your own tendencies for people pleasing and perfectionism, and learning to speak up and be more assertive. So one big area I work with my clients around in this, with this type of burnout, is talking with your manager or higher ups and renegotiating some of the things that are on your plate to take them off of your plate, because it doesn't benefit you or your employer if your responsibilities are just overwhelming you and if they're unsustainable. So if you are in the under challenge category, the first problem you need to solve with this is finding something that brings that sense of passion back for you. You need to feel like you're invested in something. So that's because when you're feeling demoralized, it's hard to care about much of anything, let alone finding a new job or a new career that you're incredibly excited by, right? We have to rebuild that sense of motivation. So if you are falling into this category, I want to encourage you to lower the stakes on yourself. For now, don't put that pressure on yourself of finding your dream job, of finding the number one thing in your life that you're ultimately passionate about and your mission in life. You have to start small. You have to start with something that you are curious about right now, and try pursuing that for a short period of time to get that sense of motivation back. So if you're in this situation, I suggest giving yourself a challenge. Find a new skill, a hobby, a new habit that you want to work on for 15 days to a month. And I want you to focus on making strides on just that one goal. It doesn't matter how small it is. It doesn't matter what domain it's in. It can be related to work or not related to work, at your life outside of that. But I want you to focus on this for 30 days as a way to build your confidence, because it's that flywheel effect of building your motivation and your sense of self-efficacy in one area that then can help lift you out of that funk and translate to other areas of your life. So if you are in under-challenged burnout, you also may want to try something that's called job crafting. And I have an article about this that I'll leave in the link to this video. But basically, job crafting is all about turning the job you have into the one you want. So it involves really redesigning your roles and responsibilities to be better aligned with your strengths and what you care about, what you're passionate about. So you can do this. One of the best way to do this is taking on those stretch assignments, or gradually shifting your role to a different area. So like I said, I have a blog post about this with more information that I'll drop below. And the last type of burnout. So if your problem is neglect, the one where you're feeling helpless and just kind of everything is out of your control, your main task for this is finding ways to regain that sense of agency and mastery over your role in your work. So you can do this by looking at ways to outsource, to delegate, or if there's things that are just not important. A lot of times people in this area get stuck in just responding and reacting to different demands that may not even be important right now. So you want to look for obligations that you can say no to altogether. And if you find yourself, a lot of times this neglect burnout is contributed to by having that workaholic boss. A few weeks ago, I did a whole live all about that, which you can watch next after this. So with that neglect burnout, it's most important to focus on what you can control, what's within your control. So structure is really important during times of stress. So if you have to, make sure you're creating a morning routine that you can stick to, something that gives you that sense of stability and structure first thing in the morning, so you get that boost and that positive feeling. And outside of your office hours, definitely you have to be vigilant about your own self-care. This goes for all the different types of burnout, but neglect in particular. Because when you feel helpless about changing tides at work, you need some semblance of predictability in your life. That's really essential. And when it comes to burnout, a lot of people automatically jump to changing jobs being the solution. And I want to encourage you to pause if you're in that space right now. And I say that because I always recommend focusing on what you can change in yourself or your job right now first. And that's because you don't want to use changing jobs as a way to just put a Band-Aid on the solution. A lot of people hop from job to job expecting things to be different. But if you don't change things in yourself first, then nothing changes. Those same patterns will just follow you to a new role and you'll just recreate them. So it's really important to get to the root of some of these things and change that before you go looking for a new position. So I hope this live was helpful. And whatever you do, please don't ignore these signs if you see them in yourself. Your well-being is far too important. So until next time, I'll see you guys soon.